Hey everybody, how you doing? This has been a hell of, if I can say that without getting into trouble with censors these days, right? It has been a heck. I mean, one heck of an NFL season, and I want to give the league an applause for how is it is. Hey everybody, how you doing? This has been a hell of, if I can say that without getting into trouble with censors these days, right? It has been a heck. I mean, one heck of an NFL season. Yep. And the question is, hey, how did we do? How did the league do? How did the Raiders do? How did all this come out and how could it have been improved upon? And first of all, let's talk about the game. Look, the Raiders pulled victory from the jaws of defeat. Unlike the game last week with the Dolphins, this game was a game the Raiders really should have lost. It started out that the Raiders are going to win, but then that was just only the first few minutes. But the Dolphins, the Broncos line, particularly their offensive line, really I thought got off the ball really very quickly. They didn't mess around with exotic blocking. It was crisp. The running backs did a great job of finding holes. Well, more specifically, did a great job of sliding one way and then going opposite where the line was. I'm not really a big fan of this zone, inside zone, outside zone blocking. And the reason I'm not is because once the running back commits to a direction, you actually literally have to wait for the line to move further in that direction before you can cut back. It doesn't allow for, and you don't see a lot of design cutbacks. And I think it's really led to a great deal of lazy play design. So we don't see what we saw in the 70s with inside traps. We do see tight end traps, but on the whole, we don't see as much in the way of exotic blocking designed to spring a running back loose who you think is going one way, but turns out the running back's going another way. And that has to be very choreographed. Now, having said that, given the pandemic that we went through and still going through, maybe, now I'll take that back, not maybe, yes, that simpler blocking was more appropriate for this time, but there has to be a happy mix between the inside zone and outside zone and more man on man or person on person. I think is more appropriate to today. Blocking that includes traps, that includes counteraction by the running back. When was the last time you saw a running back fake this way and then go back this way and then go through the hole? I contend a lot of the play of the league, and this includes the Raiders, has become simplistic and sloppy, although not as copycat as it used to be, because you do see a lot more exotic formations than ever before. Not ever before, okay? But I'll get to your comments now because I want to see them. Hey, Mario, how you doing? Mario, great to have you here. Mario says the Raiders are not even trying. Hey, Mario, can you explain what you mean by that? And if you want to be on camera and express your view, I'm happy to send you a link. We'll put up the link. You can respond to the link. I've never done that before, but why not? Use technology for that kind of interaction would be kind of cool. We can have up to 10 people in here. Why not? But but I want to know, even if you just are more comfortable writing it, why you say that the Raiders are not even trying. Because my counter to that is the literal difficulty and unpredictability of putting a team on the field when you've laid out the game plan the week before. And that game plan says that you're going to have your quarterback, running back. Yeah, you want to see? Okay, this is the link. All right. For anybody that wants to try to come in who has a camera, but hey, look, if it's anything weird, I'm going to boot you. But but I'm just saying that kind of goes without saying, right? There's the link. But I'm trusting. I'm going to be trusting. This is an experiment. It'll be a lot of fun to see what happens. But my point is that I think in the case of the Raiders, you laid out your game plan, right? And you said, okay, there's the game plan. And I have expectations for these players. Oh, by the way, want to make a video comment. Use this link. Like that, okay? Yeah. So there's the link for a video comment. This is like Zoom, but it syncs better with YouTube. At any rate, my point is that this is the first time I've done that. Okay, this rather. My point is that the Raiders, and because Mario says that they didn't try, and and things they weren't even trying. But when you put the team together, you've got all of these plays laid out for certain personnel packages and everything else. Then, guess what? 5 of your linemen come down with COVID, or your quarterback, as was the case with the Ravens. You know the drill. So all of a sudden, you got to hold those players out of practice, and because they have to be away from the team, and you can do a Zoom practice, but hey, if that person's timing is such that they can't play, then doing the practice almost becomes ridiculous, because you got to actually make time for the person that can play to take that person's place. Okay, that has happened to every team in many cases this year, and I think the teams that got this far are, for the most part, extremely lucky that they weren't hit as hard as other organizations. Some organizations, like the Ravens and the Raiders, really went through a ridiculous path. Now, you could say, hey, some organizations like the Raiders didn't seem to take the whole mask wearing issue seriously at first, and I grant you that. But my point is, everybody in the NFL is riding a bucking bronc. Your take might be, hey, look, if we're riding a bucking bronc, and then the playing field's level for all of us, and I would say, okay, you're right. But it's not exactly even. It's if you've ever built a computer model or a system dynamics model of any aspect of society, okay, you have to design in what's called a random element. And in this instance with the virus, the random element became a bigger player to boot. And I'm not used to that kind of noise. That I usually hear that in Oakland. But the sirens, right? This is a rural area. But anyway, my point is that they did, hey, egalitarian, how you doing? He goes, like I said, if you want to make a video comment, use that. But then also, do you think I hope they interview him. And if they interviewed him, that would be a great thing. If they hired him, it would be even better. I think that Derek Mason will help the Raiders get to the playoffs, because I'm going to tell you something. There is nothing wrong with the Raiders offense, okay? We can really close the door on that. Sure, strategy can be questioned here and there, but the Raiders offense overall has been quite effective. I would like to push it more in the top 10, but I think it's perfectly suited to a defense that's designed first to stop the run and then move toward rushing the passer aggressively. My issue with the Raider defense this year is that it's not aggressive. And I'll say this, it's not, I would say that about any NFL defense that wasn't aggressive. You need aggressive defense in the NFL to win. What is aggressive defense? Press man, constant blitzing from a number of angles, and single gap, except when it's appropriate to two gap, although I'm not a fan of two gapping, to stop a particular offense. Egalitarian says, who do I think will be the next defensive coordinator for the Raiders? I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be Raheem Morris. And I know that's a stretch because here is the path that would have to take to get Raheem hired by John Gruden and the Raiders, but they know each other. John has a tendency. Now, do I think Raheem is the best choice? No, but I think it's what you asked me what I thought, or who I thought would be the next, coach. And Raheem, right now, he is the interim, but according to AtlantaFalcons.com, he is interviewing this man, as I'm going to show him right here, right in a second, is interviewing for the head coaching job for the Falcons right now. All right, here, and so that's Raheem Morris. So, do I think that Raheem will get the job? No, I don't. And the reason I don't is because, and I like how he's tried to bring a nastier attitude to the Falcons. But my issue with Raheem is that he did not make the right strategic decisions at the right time. When the Falcons played the Raiders, had a fantastic pointless blitz defense package. What do I mean by that? I mean that they studied the Raiders and really blitzed on the appropriate downs. But when the Buccaneers came to town, it was like they forgot that. It was really weird. They played a passive defensive strategy that, considering, and everyone was talking about it around town, considering what happened with the Raiders, right? Everyone was saying, hey, they stopped the Raiders, what it was. I said, well, they didn't blitz. They took their foot off the neck of the Buccaneers strategically. And why? Well, you would have to point to, you would have to simply assume that analytically they believed that approach of defense would be more effective. Analytics today plays a gigantic role in strategy. Sometimes it plays too much of a role in strategy, particularly for those people who don't quite know how to appropriately use analytics, okay? So he says, do you think – I think he can. I think overall, I think he would be – let me see here. I think given some of the defenses that he's put up, I think he'll be somewhat of an improvement, but I don't think it'll be championship level. All right. And again, I'm saying that he'll hire Raheem, John, because they know each other. But Raheem, to me, is not the fellow that's going to bring the championship defense that the Raiders need. The Raiders need in a more of a Buddy Ryan style. And this is my bias. I'm not in this instance saying, hey, look, it fits perfectly with their personnel. But I am concerned that the Raiders right now need a defensive strategy rethink. Because when I look at the Raiders defense, I don't see at all. Hey, Double A says, what about Lovie Smith? I think Lovie would be fantastic for the Raiders. And I think that Lovie Smith is the person that can and would bring a championship to Oakland. because he went to the college ranks. He understands a lot about college offenses and how to stop them, and he can now bring that to the National Football League. So I think, I don't know if John will hire him, but I think first, but I do believe, and I could be wrong there because, I do have a crossing of the paths in Tampa, right? But I do believe that um, that Lovie Smith's style, including his coaching style, telling his players, "Hey, look, here's a ball. They have a chase drill, and you have to swarm to the ball as a unit, not one person, but as a unit." There are little things that Lovie Smith does that Todd Bowles has learned, and others like Mike Tomlin, all who learned from Tony Dungy, that they bring to their defenses. And the Raiders need that kind of controlled fury that they've never had. We haven't had that in a long, long time. We've had it with the 11 Angry Men, right? But that was the 70s and the 60s. But today, we haven't had that controlled fury. We've had a defense that was, he says, Morris, who doesn't get hired in Atlanta or Jacksonville. Yeah, I think so. Michael says, remember Willie Shaw, coach doesn't like the defense outshining him. Yeah, I remember that. That was really, I don't think it was so much the defense outshining him. Willie Shaw has an outgoing and aggressive personality that I think John, at that stage of his life, wasn't mature enough to deal with. I think today it's different, but also I don't think he's going to put himself in a position where he's hiring somebody that he's not comfortable with. He's going to hire people that he knows. John has been around the league so long that he can pick a person that he knows over someone that he does not know. And this guy that you're looking at right here is one of the people that he knows. So, but I am not personally sold on Raheem, that Raheem is the best defensive coordinator we can get. Okay. So, but you asked me what I thought the Raiders would do, and I'm saying I think the Raiders will do with Mr. Morris. All right. Now, I would love for them to do Derek Mason would be great. Lovie Smith, Marvin Lewis, although I think Marvin Lewis is going to wind up being the head coach of the Detroit Lions. So, that's what I think. Who do you think the Raiders will draft? I think the Raiders are focused on defense. Right now, you've got the top players right now are, Trevor Lawrence and Devonta Young and wide receiver. And you've got a score of players from Alabama that will, round out. The top. Round out. Itchy nose syndrome will round out the top 4 to 5, and I think the Raiders are in a position where they really need to focus on building their line, and where the Raiders lack a championship defense is on the line first. Look at the team that's playing right now, Washington, and let me check the score of that contest. The Redskins. I made that mistake. I didn't mean to say Redskins. The Washington football team. Sorry about it. Just beat me with a wet noodle. But the Washington football team was playing Monday night, and let me see what's going on with them. Washington football team. Yeah, here Washington football. They are. See, apparently, Boyd Donovan Smith has his hands full next week with Chase Young. Sounds like the Washington football team is winning. Yeah, they are 20-14. And
Anotó 20-14 ahora el marcador. Intenta esta noche Dustin Hopkins. El primero lo anotó y también lo anotó. 20-14 ahora el marcador.
Yeah, so that's fourth quarter with about 7 minutes to go. They're ahead. But hey, the Eagles could come back. So And so he says, do you think the Raiders, who do I think, that's what we're talking about, egalitarian. Yeah. We haven't had, hey, Edward, we haven't had a great decent since Shaw took us from 30th to 15th. Right. And that's what we need. Do you think the Raiders will draft Jordan Davis and or Christian Barmore? I think the question is, will they? And here's why I hesitate to say yes right off the bat, because the salary cap is not going to be the same. Why? The pandemic. So I think you're going to see a lot of organizations trading down. The Raiders don't have a lot of money. You could see the Raiders trade into the lower part of the first round. If I wouldn't be surprised to see them trade out of the first round, to be honest with you. I wouldn't. And the reason I say that is because overall finances are low, and then consider that the Raiders all but own Las Vegas Stadium, and they have bills associated with that facility that are much bigger than anything they had at the Coliseum. Look, in Oakland, the Raiders had a gift. Their game day expenses were paid for. Operational expenses, they didn't have to pay for that. All they had to do was pay the rent. That was it. This is a different ball of wax. And it's a ball of wax that has been spoiled by the pandemic because Garth Brooks didn't have his concert in. The Raiders were not able to hold any events, as you know, which has been the common standard theme around the country. But also the Raiders didn't do anything other than having NFL football to increase its revenue base. And that's a problem, okay? That's a problem. So it's going to make it harder for them to sign top flight first round picks. If they do it, I'm going to wonder, wow, I'm going to say, you know what? Great, they've got the extra money. But I can't see anyone operating with business as usual here. I can see a lot of contracts that are elongated in ways that they weren't before because of the pandemic. But this is going to be a tricky situation, and I think it's something that I need to talk to and have on as a guest, a draft or agent like Lee Steinberg, although or someone that I don't think Lee would give up that kind of information, but someone who is comfortable talking about how the pandemic is going to impact paying for new players that come into the league through the National Football League's player selection process. So he says if the Raiders could have a decent amount to spend, they could cut Terrell Williams and Trent Brown. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of that. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of big money spending. Remember, you had also a number of college teams that had players that skipped playing this year. So there's not a lot of tape on them. They may opt for not 2021, but the next year, 2022. It's going to be really interesting, and I think it's going to start soon. We have the Heisman on the 5th to see how all this shakes out. But my bet right now, given the Raiders' financial situation, is that they trade down in the first round, if not trade out of it. That would be unusual, but you've got to consider the financial situation that the pandemic has invites and its impact on Las Vegas and Allegiant Stadium and the Raiders' bottom line. A lot of people either don't remember or didn't know or don't realize that the Raiders paid the first roughly $150 million out of hotel tax money that was collected before the bond issue was what we call let on April of 2018. Back in 2017, they started fiscal year 2017. they started collecting, in fact, March of 2017, they started collecting this tax, and they collected it and then stockpiled it with the end contractual objective of giving that amassed amount to the Raiders on April 18th. And then after that, every amount of money they collected from the tax rate, hotel tax, went to the bond issue. Why did they do it that way? Because the Raiders wanted a $750 million subsidy, as you know. But the reality was that you had Las Vegas politicians like Steve Sisolak and Christian Giuliani, who rightfully really didn't want that kind of subsidy that large, because they would really have to justify what should have been a 2% tax rate, okay? Or, in other words, another percent more than what they collect from the hotel tax that happens to go for other services. That was, to them, a hard pill to swallow for two reasons, and I'll come back to the player issue, but all this is related, because their feeling was, hey, look, if I have a higher hotel tax rate, that's going to increase my room rate, okay? And so if I increase my room rate, then people are going to be more likely to go to Chicago, or maybe we'll lose like CES Las Vegas or any of these other conventions that go to Las Vegas because of the room rate issue, because of the hotel tax. That was the fear, okay? So what happened was they first fed the Raiders the idea of having a $550 million subsidy, even though Mark Davis had said, hey, look, $750 million or else we walk. And so they did introduce that, and Mark Bedane hit the ceiling and said, we're not going to do this. So what was created by Guy Hobbs, who is the managing director of Hobbs & Ong, which is what's called a financial advisory firm that formed the bond issue, they came up with the idea of what's called PAYGO, pay as you go. So the PAYGO part was that first amount that's collected for the 2017 fiscal year until you get to April 18th, and then that amount goes from the Stadco, which is the Raiders that were collecting the money to help pay for construction on the stadium. Then it goes to the underwriter to pay the bond issue. All right. So what happens if you don't get enough money and you're going through this from PAYGO? What happens if the tax isn't quite enough? Well, guess what? The Raiders had to adjust, and the Raiders adjusted by letting some players go, most notably Khalil Mack, and then, of course, Amari Cooper, all right? And the Raiders will say, no, they had nothing to do with it. BS. It did. It did. The Raiders really suffered because the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee oversold the Raiders on how much they could get from the tax, and they left the Raiders stuck in a situation where they had less money than they were promised, and they had to adjust. Where do you go? They didn't have like, I can just get 20 million over here or 20 million over there. It doesn't really work that way. It doesn't. So all of that impacts players, because for the first time in the Raiders' history, the Raiders had what I call the dual ledger. You had the stadium you're paying for and the team, okay? And one impacted the other. I built a computer model called the Oakland Baseball SimWorld that was used at 40 high schools and colleges. Maybe one of you was in one of those programs that used the Oakland Baseball SimWorld, and if you were at the University of San Francisco Sport Manager program from between 2003 and 2010, you definitely used it under Dan Rasher. That's my game. My point is that, look, all of that impacts today because the Raiders expected to have event monies that in part they could stockpile by the extra and then apply that to the organization, which means what? Pay for free agents, okay? But the pandemic has hampered that dynamic. It has hampered that dynamic. And for all of the NFL teams, the salary cap is smaller. Why? Because of the dramatic reductions in revenue from sponsors. That's why. Let me get to your comments. Do you think the Raiders will cut Trent Brown, Gabe Jackson, Richie Incognito, and Terrell Williams? I don't think that they'll cut. No. Well, it is a possibility. I think, in other words, do I think the Raiders will go lighter in the salary cap because of the financial situation I'm talking about? I'm saying they'll have to. The question is by how much. Edward Reed says Mark has aged significantly. He looked like he's stressed out. It's stressful for everybody. I lost two friends of mine over the past 3 days. One from the coronavirus, Tom Garino, who was Pacific Gas and Electric public affairs man, who I've known for, I think, 16 years, actually longer than that because he got me on the Super Bowl. So I've known Tom Garino since, my Lord, 1999, 21 years, 22 years. And he died of the coronavirus, didn't know he had it, came up suddenly. My buddy John Russo, who was Oakland City Council member and Oakland City attorney, his brother Al Russo, was just a mensch of a guy, lived in Brooklyn, died of aggressive kidney cancer. All right, it's only 59, so it's been very hard on all of us. So yeah, I mean, losing people is tough. All right, and if I'm going through that, you have to remember Mark's mother is in her 90s, and I know Mark is just worried sick about her and her health and trying to keep her going. And, whoever else he's gotten his concerns and girlfriends and everything else. This is no joke. What everybody is going through is no joke. And he says, do you think the Raiders can and will re-sign Nelson Aguilar? I think Nelson will make himself to be re-signed. I think he really enjoyed the Raiders, and I think that he will want to have a deal to remain with the Las Vegas Raiders because of all the times I've seen Nelson, I think this is probably the best fit of his career. What defensive lineman can we get to pass rush consistently? Well, that's a very good question. Let's go through in answering this, and let's go through the NFL draft. Right? Let's see what the NFL draft. Let's type NFL draft 2021 top defensive lineman. And some of you would say, well, what's wrong with Max Crosby? Nothing. What's wrong with Cleveland Farrell? Nothing, but they really didn't get him to be a pass rusher, which is the big issue, okay? We have Maurice Hurst, but I think it's not a matter of what's wrong with them, but I think the Raiders need – here's the problem, okay? The guys that I just mentioned, with the exception of Cleveland Farrell, who's taken 4, but and that's even with an asterisk, they were not bona fide first-round defensive linemen. Like if I say, Nick Bosa, right? Or Joey Bosa, right? The Bosa brothers were bona fide first-round guys from Ohio State, okay? All right, so that's what the Raiders didn't have them, and there are a number of people who had Cleveland Farrell as a second-round pick. And the universal consensus about Cleveland was that he was an overreach to take him that high in the draft, okay? So the Raiders didn't do themselves any favors in terms of having the kind of defenders like Washington has. All those dudes are first-rounders. Or like San Francisco, all first-rounders, right? So the Raiders didn't do themselves any favors there, okay? They just didn't. So if we're talking about defensive line people, right now, this is the way the rankings look to help your thoughts. And our thoughts rather, because we're going through this together. I am actually going to get now I have NFL. These are 2021 NFL draft prospects here. And I know it's maybe a little hard to read. It's off CBS, right? Maybe I can zoom in a bit and make it larger. Does that help? It seems to. Let me take this down, hide that for a second, and I'll try enlarging it just a little bit more in the hope that you can see it better. And maybe that, I think that does it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have Trevor Lawrence, obviously a quarterback. But the question is, how far do we have to go until we get to a defensive lineman? There is Kwity Paye of Michigan, defensive lineman. He's 6'4", 272. And then after that, we get Greg Rousseau, Miami, is an edge rusher. Now, I like the height here, 6'7", 265 pounds, okay? Sophomore. And so I've got to get the tape on him. I haven't had a chance to look. But right there, edge rushers are really highly sought after today, as you know. And to have somebody that's 6'7", reminds me of the kind of my favorite defensive line, the Dallas Cowboys of the 70s. Harvey Martin was 6'6", Randy White 6'5", Ed Too Tall Jones 7'2". All right. Bill Gregory at 6'5". These are guys that when they walked up, they formed the Dallas Doomsday Defense. Or how about Big Ben Davidson? All of the defensive line people that we can think of, say for John Randall and Alan Page of the Vikings, were big people. And what the Niners did that really set the tone for the defenses of today was they went back to the big people idea. Big first round defensive line people. And the Raiders simply need to copy that model. And I think that the Raiders project, and actually this is a good situation for the Raiders, should be to do that. Why do I say it's a good situation? Because you don't have to spend as much on defensive linemen as receivers and running backs. The Raiders have their star receiver, okay? The Raiders have their star running back, okay? The Raiders have their star quarterback, okay? The Raiders have their star quarterback backup, okay? So arguably, the Raiders have their star tight end, all right? So the Raiders offensively are set at a number of positions that normally cost a lot of money to pay for, right? So the Raiders now have the luxury, which is really cool, in the middle of the pandemic, to not spend so much money, concentrate on defense, and get effective players and build a championship defense. It's a good position for the Silver and Black to be in. So you've got Rousseau, Wyatt Davis. You've got this is supposed to be a breakdown of it. Let me go back here and go down here. Walter Football has defensive tackle rankings and defensive end rankings as well. I'm waiting for their site to open, and it does. So we'll get who's number one. And they say that it's Christian Balmore out of Alabama. No surprise there. 6'5", 310. He's 5'8", a little slow for, but says he has a mixed season. I say a little slow because you want a person that runs 5 and under. And 6'3", 205, you want someone in that is over 6'3", I would say ideally 6'5". Here you go. 6'5", all right. Our 40 time is not what we want, but what you want is someone like little Montez Sweat one's a 4'4", 40 is 6'6". All right. You're looking for an athlete. You're looking for somebody that's just crazy fast, crazy big, crazy effective, crazy rangy. Look, LeBron Ray, defensive tackle, 6'5", 292, 4'9". Now we're getting there. His projected round is 2 to 4. Okay, fine. For the Raiders, if we're going to be trading down, this is the kind of person that we need to focus on. But I think, and then of course, Louisville defensive tackle Jared Goldwire projects slowly, but said that he controlled his gap, quite well. I got to see the tape on him. And then, of course, we have, we get the idea. And this man right here, though, this is the guy, I've seen this guy play. And he should be ranked higher. Jordan Davis, 6'6", 300. They said a projected time is 5.6 in the 40. This dude is faster than that. Jordan Davis is a wrecker when he wants to be, all right? This guy should be a Raider. You hear what I'm saying? This guy should be a Raider. This guy should be a Raider right here. Telling you, this guy should be a Raider. Period. End of story. So again, so let me get back to your comments here. And Daryl says Raiders should never have left Oakland, never got rid of Coach Del Rio. Gruden is not the answer. He's had his chances. I hate to say, I think I've said this before and I'll say this again. And first of all, I know John. I like John. I like John because, look, how can you dislike a person who, when I said at the Combine 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago now, almost, hey, I have a play for you. He said he needed ideas. At the NFL annual meeting, he had Will Kiss wait for me in the lobby to get my play for him. That play was the basis of the sweep play style that you see the Raiders use. That's like the read option, but isn't. And that's the idea that I gave him, and was based on my love for now departed from Auburn, Gus Malzahn's run system that he brought to Auburn, that I felt had elements that the Raiders could use for the Raiders' purposes. So I especially designed it for John. I gave it to him. How can you dislike a person that does that? All right. I can't. Now, having said that, football is a business, and the Raiders have problems. But look at the bright side. The Raiders finished 8-8. Okay. From a marketing standpoint, which is how Mark Davis thinks, Gruden is the Raider image guy, okay? So I think, John, with the pandemic and with finishing 8-8 and with the but-fors, there were a lot of but-fors this time, okay? And yeah, I agree the Raiders should never have left Oakland, but we have to get a new team back in Oakland. I can cry about things and all that, but my training is in economic development from school. Economic development means you're consistently recreating your economy, and Oakland needs to be about doing that in a way that helps people, doesn't drive them out of town. But I digress. The ship has sailed to Las Vegas, and I can say a lot more about that, but I'm not going to say right now. I want to focus more on the player stuff. But I like John. I think John's right for the Raiders. I think John is one good defensive coordinator away from the playoffs. Okay. One good defensive coordinator away from the playoffs. All right. Thank you very much, Daryl. Me too. Sorry for your loss. People need to stop playing. Yeah, the virus is real. Oh no, I'm sorry. See, that's what I'm talking about. People dying. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not anything people need to get used to. This is really, really hard stuff to deal with. It really is. Yeah, well said, Mr. Jackson. Thank you. 32 Assassin says the Raiders reached too far off in the first 3 rounds of the draft. Look at the last 3 decades. Yeah, and this time I think the Raiders have a golden opportunity to get it right. Concentrate on getting top flight defensive linemen, and at a price that would be a little bit less than normal, and move forward. Super cool area because what do we do if we lose Nelson? Go after Robinson? I think if we lose Nelson, do we go after Robinson? I like Robinson as an idea. The question is, why not? That's something to consider. It is something to consider. But I'm also one to believe that this is the year that we're going to have to build through the lower rounds of the draft and free agents. Why? Because of the cost issue. Money is going to loom over everything. Okay? Hey Sam, how you doing? Jay Boogie says it drove me out of town. I'm loving Texas. Oh yeah, see? Thomas Beltran, time to move on. New team in Oakland. There you go. Mr. Compton. Mr. Compton says Z. Hey, Mr. Z. In light of the Raiders' history since John Gruden took the job of head coach, do you feel that John has been good for the organization? Yeah, I think overall John is good for the organization in terms of having a spiritual representative of the Raiders about. John is a tie to the history of the Raiders that included Al Davis, who hired him and who traded him away, and who he beat in the Super Bowl. And he understands how to build and run a team. Now, I think John's shortcoming is that he has too much of a blind spot for people who are his friends to know when to make the change at the right time. And I think it came very close to costing him. The savior right now is that they moved to Las Vegas. It's the pandemic. And John and Mark Davis are friends. Mark Davis spent a lot of time, as you know, trying to get John Gruden. And so now he has John Gruden. I think the last thing that Mark wants to do is to make some sort of change that involves not having John Gruden involved with the Raiders as head coach. He gave him a $100 million contract. Right now he's $30 million into it, unless of course he's front loaded or something like that. John has a house, I understand, in Las Vegas, so he's building one. And so why not just give him a chance to finish it? Look, newsflash, the Raiders did not have a losing season. As much as we are disappointed with 8-8, and we are disappointed with 8-8, he didn't have a losing season. Okay. It's a far cry from his first year, which stunk, his second year, which was better, but still not what people wanted. And this year, look, it's an improvement. It's not dramatic, but it is headed in the right direction. You got to grant him that. You have to say that bringing in Mike Mayock did improve the personnel to a degree. However, I contend that the Raiders' other big problem is conditioning. You don't go 6-4 and then go 1-5, or right this year, or 6-4 and then lose the previous year without it being a conditioning problem. Part of it is a scheme issue, of course, with the defense, but there's something in the way that they're not conditioning their players that causes them, I contend now, to peter out after a time. And now part of that, of course, was the virus, but there's something quite not right there with the conditioning. Do you think the Las Vegas Raiders should try to sign Anthony Rush in the offseason? And my thought right now is I don't know that at this point. No, I don't know what let's take a look at Mr. Rush, okay, and find out what's happening with respect to Mr. Rush, because the Packers just released him, and the question is why. So let's take a look at that idea, because it does fit within the whole issue regarding concerns about revenue, right? So here's Anthony Rush, Google, there, okay? So the question is, why did the Packers do that, all right? They said they were opening a roster spot. In other words, are we getting somebody else's brush off, okay? And in order to open, they said he was released. He played just a single snap for the Packers against the Panthers and was active for only one game. He entered the league as an undrafted free agent. He played 4 seasons with the Jets. Now, I'm not sold on him, and the reason is that the reason I'm not sold on him right now, since you asked, is it comes up in the context of developing a line, and I'm saying that the Raiders' problems have been that the Raiders didn't focus on building a defensive line of high-ranked draft choices. Okay, so you're going to go into free agency and get somebody who's an iffy. That would be great for him. Okay, in terms of needing a job, I get that, but is it great for the Raiders in terms of trying to construct a championship defense? Can I construct a championship defense with Anthony Rush? And the answer is, I don't know. But can I construct a championship defense with the top picks in the 2021 NFL draft? I think I have a better chance of doing that with the guys from Alabama in particular than I do with Mr. Rush. Where do I take my chances? Now, if it becomes a cost issue and I turn around, I'm really struggling for cash, I might rethink that, okay? But I don't, I need to do some study to determine if the Raiders are there in terms of the Raiders' payability. There's two things here. Everyone talks about signability, right? But there's also payability. And I hope people start using that term with respect to teams. What's the payability? Can they pay? Because it's the pandemic. And I want to stress something that people must not forget at all. The level of money that's normally around isn't around. Okay? Sponsorships have taken enormous hits because of this. It's not there. Don't give me any crazy comments to the contrary, because it ain't here. Okay? It's just not. And he says, I agree, it's headed in the right direction. He says, 8-8 is still an improvement. COVID really messed us up. It did, yeah. Falcons says, who should be Atlanta Falcons head coach, in my opinion? Eric Bieniemy. Boom. Period. End of story. Eric Bieniemy. And Eric has been on the elf on the shelf for the innovative offense for years. If people really believe that Eric Bieniemy is the person, and hey, look, his Chiefs resume proves that he is, at least that he can, run offenses, give him the job as head coach. Let him have the keys to his own kingdom and produce a championship with Atlanta. The Falcons need a new breath of air. And right now they're stuck in the we don't know how to no huddle. We don't know how to read option. We're stuck in our kind of old, stodgy offensive ways types of coaches, okay? And this is in the middle of a state and a region that has become the cradle for innovative offense in a way I never thought I'd associate the South with creative offenses. Wrong, okay? Oh, my Lord, okay? Trent Brown, Littleton, and Mariota's contracts got to go. Also, Abram and Lynn can't stay healthy. Agreed. He says, you can't blame COVID for this mess. Yeah, you can. Of course you can. It's not a matter of, let me get back to this, Dave. It's not a matter of blaming. Okay? Again, let me explain something to you. Let me ask you a question, all right? What are you going to do when you spent the previous week and the week before that working on a game plan for Sunday, and then all of a sudden that jumbo package you wanted to use, you can't use it? Why? Because your top offensive tackle and the offensive tackle that's used in the jumbo package both have COVID. You're going to tell me that COVID, you can't blame COVID? I mean, come on. That's crazy, man. That's crazy talk. Says, got that one. Should they move on from Matt Ryan? Yeah, they need to. Let me put it this way. The Falcons, and I think this is something that Mr. Blank can do, the Falcons should empty their wallets and get Trevor Lawrence, excuse me. Trevor Lawrence to the Falcons, I think, is a match made in marketing and football heaven. A proven star, known around here, champion, good looking, and will be coming into a city that's hungry for a champion. Could learn from Matt Ryan, but you know what'll happen. He'll play behind Matt Ryan for maybe half the year. There'll be this hue and cry, and then he'll start, by like the 8th game. Okay, something like that. But yeah, I think it's time. I really do. And you don't have guys like Mr. Lawrence coming along just growing on trees. Okay, I'm not sold on him as the guy that can automatically bring a Super Bowl to Atlanta, but I do think he's a good piece to the bigger puzzle. And we can always talk about weaknesses and talk ourselves out of getting someone, but if the Falcons don't get him, then it's got to be Fields, one or the other. But I think Lawrence is the guy that would be fantastic for Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta too. So yeah, I think it's time to start moving on. And I say this because Matt Ryan's a class act. I think it's time to start moving in that direction. Develop the talent that is there. Yep, build through the draft and go. D scheme was terrible. Win 1st and 3rd down. Bingo. John Akala. Hello, would you keep Marinelli as? No, I would not. Nothing against Mr. Marinelli as coordinator. I do like Mr. Marinelli as defensive line coach, but as coordinator, no. And because it's nothing personal against Mr. Marinelli, it simply has to do with his lack of acumen at designing defenses that stop read option style offenses of the type that the Chiefs run, these flowing offenses, as I call them, which we have not seen the ultimate representation of yet. No. David Compton, what do you see for the Raiders' future? Let's say over the next 2 or 3 years, AFC West, will they be on top in light of KC? The Raiders right now will not top KC until they build a defense that is designed to stop the modern offenses of the NFL. The problem with the Raiders right now is that they built their team to stop Kansas City, but they didn't build their team to win a championship. There is a gigantic difference, all right? There is a gigantic difference. They beat Kansas City. They had a great game plan, but they didn't do it the second time, and it's like it took the wind out of the Raiders' sails. No. The Raiders should aim higher. You know that whole thing, you aim higher and you hit the middle, right? What they did was, instead of aiming higher, like, hey, we're going to win the West. And to win the West, we have to beat everybody. Okay, and what's the model team that we can form to beat everybody? The Raiders didn't solve that equation, all right? They focused on Kansas City. So what happened? Hey, you aim for Kansas City, but they hit halfway, right? They won 1 or 2, and they sort of forgot about everybody else. And then the Bills walked into the building and basically strafed them to death. It was not funny what the Bills did to the Raiders. It was not funny. And that right there should have been the Raiders' wake-up call, but it wasn't. So let's see here. Why not? I agree. Look, I agree. If you can get, I did say that. If you can get either Hurts or Lawrence, fine. All right. All of a sudden, your whole defense is out. Yeah. And he says Atlanta should go after Dak Prescott and dump Ryan. You think Jerry Jones would be stupid enough to make Dak available? Interesting. I mean Justin Fields. Okay, yeah. Justin Fields. Right. Right. Fields. I knew who you meant, and I went along. Right. Would it surprise you if Fields has a better career than Lawrence? No, it would not. He says, I'm just tossed up between the two of them for my Falcons. It wouldn't surprise me, no. But it wouldn't surprise me because Fields has an uncanny ability to throw well on the run. And there are teams that are, unlike the past, ready like that to design an offense around a guy like him. So would it surprise me? No. But Trevor Lawrence can run, and he's a gamer, and he's a contemporary. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to surprise some people who might. I mean, I don't see him as like Joe Burrow. All right. I was never sold on Joe Burrow as the guy that can get the Bengals to the promised land. He's a great passer. Yeah. But Joe Burrow's success, I say, was the combination of Joe Brady's offense, being at LSU at that particular time, and that's it. Okay. So you take away Joe Brady, you send Joe Burrow someplace else, and what you get is what you got. LSU didn't perform as well as they did. Joe Burrow he did okay, but not, he wasn't a world beater that a number of people thought he was. I don't believe that Joe Burrow should have been picked number one. Because unlike Trevor Lawrence, who has a multi-year body of work, Burrow had just 1 year. Now he's injured, and you have to hope that his rehabilitation is going to produce the same kind of person you had before the injury. So for all practical purposes, he's already damaged goods. And look at how high the Bengals took him at, when the Bengals could have had Chase Young. All right? But see, I'm also not sold on their head coach either. I'm not sold on the idea that they fired Marvin Lewis. Marvin got them to the playoffs. Maybe he didn't win, but he got them to the playoffs. Well, what would you choose? Playoffs or 5-11? I'll take playoffs. Why? Because as long as I'm in the dance, it just might happen that one of those years I get to dance with the prom queen and maybe even marry her. You know what I mean? So, but if you're not in the church, if you're not in the dance, you don't even get to think about that. So, some of these people are like, well, Marvin Lewis always lost in the playoffs, but he got there. He got there. Wow. So, says, would it surprise you if I got that one? Okay. Who would you rather pair with Ruggs and Aguilar? Terrell Williams, Zay Jones, Brian Edwards. Deep statements in. Thanks. If the Raiders can improve by 50%, they would win more. In defense, yes. I hope the Raiders re-sign Nelson Aguilar. They'd be foolish not to, unless, of course, it was a money issue. Falcon says, I don't see the Jags passing up on Lawrence at number one. It would have to take a huge trade-up, and with Thomas Dimitroff out, who knows what the new hire would do. That's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that, Falcon fan, because, I'm not sold on Jacksonville taking him when you've got Gardner Minshew. I mean, they just got Gardner Minshew, okay? So if you take Lawrence, you got to tell me that Lawrence is going to be a whole world better than Minshew, and I don't see that. Jacksonville's problems are in defense. Jacksonville's problems are in just basic coaching, okay? Jacksonville's problems are with how their coaches didn't relate to their players. I mean, how could you have a guy like Leonard Fournette and not properly use him, and then all of a sudden he has to run off to the Buccaneers? That to me is a big head scratcher. Leonard Fournette was just simply not properly employed, and he felt he deserved more than what they were paying him, and he did, and still does. But he's also not in the right system. Leonard Fournette has been the victim of just bad butt-ass coaching in terms of scheme. Okay? Just has. Now getting back to the Jags and Lawrence, if the Jags take Lawrence in the middle of a pandemic, that would mean they would have to unload Minshew just for cost reasons. And I don't see them doing that just because. I think it would be a stupid move myself. Can they afford it? Well, their owner's, probably willing to put some money in himself, given what sports organizations he's also involved in owning. But we'd have to see. I, frankly speaking, I don't see the Gardner Minshew as such a bad guy that you have to go out and get Trevor Lawrence. I feel like they just got Gardner Minshew, literally, and they haven't given him a chance to gel. And now it's just all around spell instability, and I don't think that you really need to do that. Gardner Minshew is not this older guy like Matt Ryan, where you can say, "Hey, Matt, you're in a sunset, and here's your replacement." Right? That's the beauty. That's what you want, and I think that's what the Falcons will want. Now, that's not to say that I'm not saying that Jacksonville would just simply step aside and say, "Okay, Atlanta, you can have him," but they might. There is that. But I don't think that between Lawrence and Fields, I don't think that should be high on Jacksonville's list. I think there are higher priorities. So I do see that happening myself. Well said, Zen. Zach is part of the good old boys league. Yeah, there you go. So, folks, thanks. I'm going to sign out. I'll be back tomorrow. I gave myself a hard stop at around midnight, and we got there. Unbelievable. So we have the playoffs coming up. So tomorrow I'll come back to talk about the playoffs. Let me see how, before I leave here, the Monday night. Let's see how the game turned out between the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles. And who would John? My choice would be Derek Mason. I want Derek Mason. That's my choice. Now, the previous question was who I thought Gruden would take. Okay. All right. So here we are. NFL.com. Allow. And Eagles. There we go. All right. And Washington clinches NFC East. Congratulations to Cal legend Ron Rivera and his Washington football team clinching the East, downing the Eagles 20-14. So here is the NFL schedule for Super Wild Card Weekend. Ooh, don't you like? Where's some? There's no like S or something like Super Wild Card Weekend. Anyway, what a stupid name. Anyway, the supersized schedule. I'm reading this now. It says the supersized schedule. Yeah. He says, look here. This is great. This is great. Good night, Zinni. Not quite done. Super cool area. He says, can Washington upset Tampa Bay? Let me get to that one. Can Washington upset Tampa Bay? No. Because Washington has a powerful defense, but they do not have a complete offense. And I think that the Washington offense versus the Tampa Bay offense is more talented. The defense is more effective. And so let me take that back. Washington could upset Tampa Bay. They could upset them. Washington could upset Tampa Bay. You know why? That front four harassing Tom Brady, that's a problem. Okay. It's possible. Do I see it happening? No. All right. So Saturday, January 9th, AFC number 7 seed, the Colts at the Buffalo Bills. NFC 6 seed Rams at the Seahawks. So that's 105 Eastern. They're 440, excuse me. You got the Rams. Then you got the Buccaneers at Washington. Ooh, the Bucs have to travel. So Washington's all pumped up like, we're the East champions. You're a wild card. We'll stop you. You're coming to our place. This is going to be interesting. I can't wait. Then Sunday we have the Ravens. Dangerous team. Going to another interesting organization in Tennessee Titans. A rematch of playoff games from a not too distant past that the Ravens want back. The Ravens now have an opportunity to exercise the demons called the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee at 105 Sunday. Then number 7 seed NFC Chicago Bears are go to New Orleans Saints at 440. I think that the Saints, the Bears gave the Packers all they could handle. And I could see the Bears upsetting the Saints in the playoffs. And I say that because Matt Nagy's weird offense now has a playoff platform to come out with, the full expression of its playbook, right? It's going to be a fun game to watch. And the Saints with Drew Brees, coming off that injury, and they just look a little ragged to me, like they're ripe for a beating. In fact, they've finished the season. They lost, 2 out of the last 3, right? AFC number 6 seed Cleveland Browns playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, my Lord. 8:15 at Pittsburgh. Wow, the Browns going to be jacked up. Coin flip. It's going to be a beautiful game to watch. Oh, I can't believe that one. Wow. And the division playoff schedule will be announced once all wildcard games have been played. Okay. Come back tomorrow, then I'll have the odds. It says Rams could upset Seattle. Unlikely. Saints defense, though. Yeah, true. But come back tomorrow, folks. I got some NFL odds I want to share with you tomorrow. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Good night. I'll see you. And thank you.